Finally, we have a debut album from Mr. Lil Nas X. He has been on the scene for a few years now. He gave us Old Town Road, the longest running Billboard Hot 100 #1 of all time. We can't pretend that he didn't use some sneaky tactics to get that song kept at the top for as long as it was, but I also think it actually was just a very popular song in its own way anyway. I don't think it was a lie or anything like that, but of course he obviously, used some tactics. The remixes, come on man, it was pretty clear what he was doing. But I'm not mad though, I still think that song is really fun. I think it's just very straight to the point, and the chorus is great. Like it's just a genuinely great pop tune. I've always just been excited to see where he goes. I mean, where'd you go from the track that is Old Town Road? You make a song that's very niche, I feel, and it's very difficult to then follow that up with something that's going to remain relevant, because it could easily be that this man, Lil Nas X, could be remembered as a one-hit wonder. And while the EP that came after it was very disappointing and very lackluster, I feel as though he bounced back later on, giving us Call Me By Your Name, Montero, the lead single for this very album here. It's not the same as Old Town Road. It takes his career in a different direction. He gave us a very bold and controversial video that became viral for a pretty long while. He knows the kinds of people that he wants to get angry, that'll talk about his music in ways that, keep him relevant. He's a pretty smart guy when it comes to that. Of course, you could easily say he's just baiting people, which he absolutely is. But I'm pretty happy to say that the song itself is great in its own right anyway. I think it's just a really well-structured pop track. I think that once again, he absolutely nails the chorus. I think it's pretty snappy, straight to the point. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It probably could be a longer song, but I don't think it's necessarily hindered by its length. It's an interesting lyrical narrative as well. I mean, you don't tend to see like outright, openly gay songs hit #1 for as long as this track did and for as famous as it was. I mean, sure, it definitely got helped by the video, but I still think it's a pretty big moment in music for a song that is singing about the topics that it's singing about to be #1. But regardless, it's still just really good anyway, so even without that, I'm pretty happy with this track. He followed it up with other great singles too. I think Sun Goes Down takes him in a more somber direction. I think the melody of this track is really lovely. It just kind of soothes you in a really nice way, and of course you've got the really dark lyrics that back it as well. It kind of offers an insight to Lil Nas X's I guess mental state. You wouldn't necessarily pick up on it initially, but I think when you do read into the lyrics, you catch some of those lines and you're like, oh, okay. Industry Baby has grown on me a bit as well. I think, yeah, sure, the horns, the overblown horns could be kind of undercooked in places just to kind of bring it a bit more heaviness when it kicks in, because it is a very similar monotonous da 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 the whole way through. But I still think it sounds good for what it is. I think Jack Harlow steals the show with his feature. He just sounds slick and cool as hell. And along with this, and the track SUVs with Pooh Shiesty, like seriously, I'm not gonna lie, Jack Harlow is on a bit of a streak. Didn't like his album at all, but if he goes in this direction where he's just kind of laid back, chilled out, but also just really giving us some pretty hard verses, he could be onto a winner. The rest of the album, past all the big singles though, is just so disappointing to me, because I feel like I'm just listening to any given popular album here, because you always get this where the singles are like the big moments, the big bold brash moments that have huge things to say, that are just incredibly instantaneous and incredibly catchy, and even in some sort of ways inventive with, again, how he kind of portrayed his image with these singles in these videos. Like, all of that's there, and then you get the rest of the album, and it's just very standard stuff. I can't begin to tell you how many pop albums and popular albums end up like this. You've got the really memorable singles, and then the effort placed into every other track is just like not there. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is actually a bad album at all, and I think a lot of these tracks are pretty solid, but I don't know, man, they just don't have the it factor that the songs that I mentioned at the start do. I feel like Dead Right Now is okay, but it feels like it's taking a similar structure to Industry Baby, and they are right next to each other on the album too. So obviously when you hit Industry Baby, you're going to want to listen to that one way more than Dead Right Now, even if it is just for Jack Harlow's verse. That's What I Want is incredibly basic lyrically. I even feel like the hook sounds like it's ready-made for like a radio jingle. Maybe this is the one that he's going to try and boost as another single later down the line, because it just does feel very standard and simple. Although to be fair, I think if he was smart, which he tends to be with his marketing, the best choices for the next singles are gonna have to be Scoop with Doja Cat and $sign Slime with Megan Thee Stallion. Just because of how big they both are at the moment, it would make sense to boost those tracks as the singles. But $sign Slime doesn't really have much of an oomph to it, in my opinion. I feel like I'm just wanting more, and then you hit Megan's verse and it's just like any Megan verse you've heard. Seriously, man, pretty overrated rapper, I'm not gonna lie. Like Megan just says the same stuff on every single track at this point. I'm not going to get my mind changed, unfortunately. I don't see it any other way. Her content is so boring, man. It's so boring. You guys got to stop hyping her up. It's time to stop. Scoop, on the other hand, though, is pretty fun. It reminds me a bit of Scoop Diddy Poop from Kanye in a less goofy way, but the hook is very similar to that, where it's just very simple. I mean, he's just saying Scoop over and over again. I'm not going to lie, though, it kind of works and it's kind of catchy. The lyrics themselves are very, very you know, late teens, early 20s type stuff. You can tell he's still in that young phase, and he's probably okay with that. But it does feel very immature in the sense of the lyrics, which is weird because I feel like some of these tracks are very mature, but tracks like this don't have that. Tales of Dominica just need more from these beats. A lot of these beats just feel very kind of rinsed and repeated throughout. Also, the lyrics on this one are incredibly surface level. Like, seriously, some of the lines he's saying here, referencing how he's feeling and stuff. Like, he maybe ran out of ideas, because there are some tracks towards the latter end of the album that touch on these topics a bit better. And this one just feels like more of an afterthought. But like I say, you know, Sun Goes Down comes towards the end. I feel like that is the point of the album where the sun literally goes down too, and it gets darker, and you hit the more emotional stuff. You got Void, which is pretty similar to in terms of its themes. And then Don't Want It tackles the fame side of things, you know, what he expected to get when he was famous versus the reality of what he ended up getting. The idea that he thought that the awful thoughts, the depressive thoughts would go away, but obviously it doesn't really work like that. But I guess you have to learn the hard way in that sense. Maybe I'll be there one day too. Maybe I'll be rich and famous and I'll be like, damn, man, could have been better. Could have been better, man, but I'm just sad now. I'm sadder than I was before. Although I say that, I'm not like that sad of a person, to be honest. I'm just talking out my arse. But yeah, I mean, there are some great moments on this album, but they literally come in the singles. And I feel like when I'm, you know, deleting the tracks from my Apple Music library, I'm gonna literally delete all the ones that aren't the 3 tracks that were the singles before, which it's just so disappointing, man. Like, this could have been way better. I mean, there's a Miley Cyrus feature right at the end of the album that feels a bit random, but this is the thing, like, most of these tracks sound alright. Like, he has a good ear for melody. He has a good ear for a good hook, a good tune. Like, even if I am criticizing quite a lot of this album, it is catchy and it does stick with you by the end of the track. They're not bad at all. But he's playing it safe. He's playing it safe with this one, Montero. I see you, man. You could have definitely put in a lot more emphasis on these deeper cuts. I know there's potential there. I can feel it. But this album just ain't it yet. And it's a debut album. Gotta give him time to grow. But he led it up really strongly. So I just think I expected a bit more. 6 out of 10 from me. I do think it's solid. I think it's more of just what I think he could give us versus what the album actually gave us. I think that's what's going on in my mind. Like, I can see where he'll grow to, but he's just not there yet. But let me know your thoughts. Ooh, in the comments. Crack your fingers. Let me know what I should review next. Tell me what you want to tell me, whatever you want. Tell me whatever you want, anything. Doesn't have to be music related. Do have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. Definitely subscribe, and goodbye.